This is your girl BMF Goddess, owner of Goddess Make Custom. Today I have the pleasure and honor of sitting down with pro wrestler tag team specialist, the absolute Kris Kage.
How you doing, Goddess? Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. I just want the room to get warmed up a little before we start. How are you today?
Doing all right. Hanging in there, trying to get through these days. Pretty tough. Holiday season coming up. Very busy. And, a little difficult than usual to deal with, given everything we've been through this year. But, hoping things will stay positive.
All right. Could definitely appreciate that. Kris Cage has been wrestling professionally 8 years, and he is well known for his BMF attitude, quick-witted, sharp mic skills, and less popular amongst his opponents, the pain he brings to the ring. Chris, welcome and thank you for taking the time to be here and give our listeners a taste of your career.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Anything I could do for the fans to entertain.
Chris, would you tell us what age you started watching pro wrestling? Who was the first pro wrestler to make an impression on you? And how old were you when you realized this is what you want to do?
Well, when it comes to watching it, I started watching it when I was about 2 years old. Just happened to be something that the family, would put on at the house on the television. I was lucky enough to have family members that were fans of this. My great grandfather was a fan of it, going back long, long before I was born. And it's one of those things that was kind of always around me, always being aired and always being watched by somebody in the family, and the bug, as they say, catches you at a certain time. And when it comes to deciding, or I guess the idea planting in my head that it's what I wanted to do, would have been around, I would say, around 11, 12 years old, around 1996, I would say. And, just watching certain things. I was very highly influenced by, Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels growing up, and because of that, a lot of what I saw in those mid '90s were a big inspiration to me. The Iron Man match, and even things before and after that. Just as a young kid, I very much bought into the presentation of, Shawn Michaels coming up, being the young kid that dreamed about being the world champion and accomplishing his goal. And, when you're a young kid that buys into this stuff with everything, with all of your belief or suspension of disbelief, that was pretty much all I needed. And by that point, it had infected me enough that I knew I wasn't going to be able to get away from it very easily. And that just evolved into the desire to want to be a part of it. And, from there, you dream, you imagine, you fantasize, and I've been lucky enough to have been a part of this for a good number of years now, and I've been able to travel. I've been able to experience a lot of things I thought I never would, and you know, still not done yet.
Interesting stuff. I'm gonna play this message before we continue. What is your favorite wrestling promotion of all time and why?
I, unlike most fans, do not like to, and even as a very young man, was not a fan of hindering myself to having a favorite anything, especially when it came to wrestling organization. Sometimes when you get too deep into the fan community, you get lost in favoritism, and it happens all over fandom, no matter what we're talking about. But fans have a tendency of picking and choosing what they like and wanting the people around them to like what they like, and sometimes could be a little hostile if you do not like what they like. And as if to me, if you're a fan, you're a fan. So if you call yourself a pro wrestling fan, then no matter what the flavor or what the brand, if you will, should appeal to you. Now, are there things on every brand that appeals to every wrestling fan? Absolutely not. So it may be based on the type of wrestling that you like to watch or the type of wrestling that you're a fan of. But uh, a fan is a fan, and regardless of what era we're talking about, what promotion we're talking about, what country we're talking about, there can be something for everybody in the family, no matter what your poison just happens to be. If I had to signal it down, when I have to, if I have to kind of signal it, like narrow it down to one, I'm gonna go with just what I grew up on, the late 1980s and mid 80s, 90s wrestling. You hear it a lot. People kind of try to glorify those time periods, but there's a reason for it, and they don't make them like they used to. And that's really my jam. We're going 1980s NWA and even late 80s WWF and things like that. And of course, a lot of us grew up through the Attitude Era, so that's kind of hard to beat when it comes to the magnitude of what wrestling was at one point, just in comparison to what it is now. And of course, that's depending on who you talk to, because you know, some may argue that there is no greater time to be a wrestling fan than today in 2020. So it's very subjective, as you know. But that's what makes wrestling so good. There's something for everybody, whether you're a new school fan, an old school fan, whether you're a hardcore fan or a casual fan. I'm sure there's something that you could find that you can get hooked to.
Well, that was a totally satisfying answer, and I completely agree. So, moving along, what would you say is the most difficult part of being a wrestler today?
I think this. I think the same thing that would make wrestling or trying to be a wrestler difficult in the present day is no different than anything from any past era. Probably even more so today because of the oversaturation of wrestling. The fact that there are so many platforms to watch wrestling, so many wrestling organizations, so many wrestlers individually to follow. So today in 2020 might be a little more, even more difficult than it was at a certain point being a wrestler, try to make it in wrestling, just because you have a lot more competition. There's a lot easier to get into the wrestling business than it was 20 years ago, and there's a lot of guys that are getting into the wrestling business every single day, and not so much success. But you know, the fact is that they're out there. So to find your place and to be weeded out of the haystack that is the world of professional wrestling and trying to be discovered, it could be pretty rough, especially when you work for a business that uh doesn't always consist of the most trustworthy people. And I'm sure, like any entertainment business, it's full of those who want to sell your dreams and want to promise you a lot of things and make the grass look as green as possible once you get there. But it's a struggle, it's a hustle, and it's not as glamorous and easy as it looks on TV. When you watch TV or you watch your videos on YouTube, you kind of just see the ending result, the finished product of all the nonsense that goes on behind the scenes. Some of which could be a pleasurable experience, some not so pleasurable. And the best thing you could do is just surround yourself with a very small amount of people that you trust or that have your best interest at heart, and just push yourself. Don't stop hustling and keep on going. but I'm sure that was the case, 20 years ago, 30 years ago as well. Um, Nowadays, you just got a lot more to deal with. You got a lot more competition out there.
That was awesome. You have to excuse me, guys, while I mark out because I truly understand his views and agree with them. And he's hitting everything on the nail for me. I'm going to play this message.
Hey, I wanna know who is one of your favorite managers in this business?
Well, that managers is something that I am very much been a fan of since I was a young kid, and I've been a fan of pretty much all of them. But if you have to narrow it down to just one at the top of the list, it will have to be the greatest of all time, Bobby the Brain Heenan, manager of champions, managed them all from world champions all the way down the ladder, stables of wrestlers, some of the all-time greats. Every single person he has managed in that Hall of Fame, in a Hall of Fame, uh, when it comes to being able to elevate the talent standing next to you, which is at the end of the day a manager's job. Nobody did it better. And when it came to needing somebody that may be able to talk for somebody that couldn't necessarily speak for themselves, nobody did it better. And when it came to getting physical and getting involved in their clients' matches and bringing as physically much as possible to their role and to their support of every wrestler that they manage, nobody did it better than the Brain, and a man of many talents, a man who wore many hats from managing to producing to agenting to commentating. Also, one of my favorite commentators of all time, along with Gorilla Monsoon, the great Gorilla and Bobby the Brain combination. Can't get better than that. Uh, and then you go down the list. I mean, you got the mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart. You got, of course, the great Paul Heyman, who's holding it down today in 2020 in a role that is a lost art. You don't see too much of these days. Uh, I grew up a fan of ECW in the late 90s, a fan of the manager of champion, Bill Alfonso, and the list kind of goes on from there. But like you said, if you want to know my number one, you got to go with Bobby the Brain.
All right. Very cool. Very cool. Okay. This next question I want to ask you, I if you could be completely honest, how would you compare wrestling style growing up to how it is today?
Well, the $1 million question, the debate that rages through the business every single day, uh, between fans, between performers, between past legends, between trainers. What is the difference? What is the benefit? Is there one between the style of today and the style of yesterday? And to me, while uh, I will admit, as many would, that in today's environment, you are seeing action that most of us could never have imagined 20 years ago. And growing up as kids, some of the things that these guys do today are just absolutely incredible, unbelievable, and some of the most amazing things that have ever been performed inside the square circle. But the biggest difference I would have to say between now and then was the commitment to having the audience's disbelief suspended a little more on a regular basis, and a lot of people, both in and out of the business, will argue that in today's climate, the fans are very educated, maybe a little too educated. The fans pretty much know what's up and they know what's going on behind the curtain. Uh, and because of that, some of the a lot of the business today feels like they would be insulting the audience by trying to make them believe something that they know to be false. But uh, I kind of disagree with that notion. I actually feel like because the audience knows what's going on and they do know what's going on behind the curtain, they actually want to be presented something that could make them lose themselves in what they're watching for a little while. It'll be nice to watch the event and not be able to point out everything that may not be that authentic. A lot of people like to compare the wrestling business to watching an action movie, and nobody likes going to the movies and paying their hard-earned money to sit in a theater and be bored to tears, or to be able to point out everything that was a special effect or a CGI effect or a stunt man. When you start to notice those things during your experience, it takes you out of the experience. It takes you out of the fantasy. It takes you out of why you paid to watch what you're watching. And I would say that's the thing that, and of course, not everybody agrees. In fact, the majority of today's culture would disagree. But I just feel like the product is stronger no matter what product you're talking about. Again, no matter what brand, no matter what country, is stronger if you're watching and you go, you know what? I know what this is, but that right there, it kind of got me. I don't know if that was real or not, but I'm digging it. I'm buying it. They feel the feelings. I usually tell people that are close to me that wrestling is not necessarily something that people do or something that you watch. It's something that you feel. And wrestling is a feeling. Wrestling is a feeling in the pit of your stomach. And if it doesn't give you that feeling, if it doesn't give you that feeling that causes the goosebumps to rise on your arm, then something's a little missing.
I have to say that that's almost brings a tear to my eye because I know exactly what he means by that, and I'm sure that most of us do. I'm gonna play some of these messages.
I want to know personally is how does it feel to get your butt kicked by Brother Greatness at BWF?
Well, if you want me to answer the brother greatness question, Chef, who was it? Chef, is it? Bottom line is that what you may see as propaganda is what brother greatness does, may not actually be fact. See, as the scorecard, as I got it tallied here at the house, says brother greatness and myself are one apiece. And the one on brother greatness side was no doubt a fluke and something that he absolutely got lucky on, which is why he has spent the last year and a half ducking me. But that being said, I'm sure whoever, Mr. Chef, is it, who's asking this question, if you were really paying attention, you would see that over the 7 month time that me and Brother Greatness crossed paths with each other, I absolutely owned him in every single checkbox on the list. When you're talking about on camera, when you're talking about talking, when you're talking about spitting this venom I'm spitting right now, and especially when you're talking about getting in the ring and showing that mean streak in front of the BWF faithful, as he likes to call them. The absolute Kris Kage was on top, number one at all times, which is why, till this day, your boy, Brother Greatness, still calls yours truly the captain.
What's up, Goddess? What's up, Cage? What y'all doing? How's y'all day?
All right, so what up to Antonio? What up, player? Thank you for tuning in, and I hope you're feeling this flavor that we're spitting today. But I think we need to take another question.
Mira, tú sabes that there's this word tweening in the business. What do you think about that? Good thing, bad thing, or is just bullshit?
What was the question? Give me that again.
What do you think about tweening? She said.
Tweening, like in between.
I never heard that term. So
In reference to Miss Thorne's question about tweening, if you will, I'm going to assume that by tweening you mean the shades of gray between being a heel and a face. To which, if that is what you are indeed talking about, I would just like to answer with one word: preposterous. Bottom line is, when you tune into today's product, no matter what brand you happen to be watching, it's very clear that designating a role, whether it be one side or the other, is quite crucial to the storytelling in which we enjoy. Nowadays, you got a lot of people claiming that picking one side or the other may not be that important. To that, I say, paha, because you got a lot of fans, even the fans of those who claim such nonsense, that enjoy what they are watching better when there is a clear cut side or position taken by the performer. Case in point, anybody that's been paying attention knows that this past week, the world was crowned a new world's heavyweight champion. And I guarantee you, if you had been paying attention to that, you would know that the gentleman who is the new world's heavyweight champion has been performing in a manner that would designate one side or the other. And in response to that, a lot of the audience has approved of what they are seeing and has praised what they are seeing very highly. In fact, claiming that something that they have missed and that was gone for a long time has returned to them. Now, if said person was running by the tweener philosophy, I don't think we would be getting the presentation we're getting right now, nor would we be getting the praise that said person is getting right now. Fact of the matter is, even the people that claim that those choosing sides are not important, they choose sides every single time they present their product on screen. They just don't want to acknowledge it.
All right. Yes. Before I play the next message, I just want to thank you guys for listening and participating.
I also want to know, who do you consider the worst bad guy?
The worst heel.
See, now that's a confusing question, Miss Thorne, because are we talking about worst heel? Go ahead. Are we still talking about worst heel in terms of the worst as in the best? Or are we talking about the worst heel as in the worst performed heel who's not exactly doing what they should be doing or bringing to the table what they should be bringing?
All right. While she answers that, I'm going to get on to my next question. Chris, you've given a lot to us fans, putting together the GOAT, which is the stable that included your partner Whiplash and the Blood Brothers, G Murder and Rays. You guys have left some staples, not just in people's asses, but in indie wrestling history. Now, I'm aware that you and Whiplash are focused on the Zoltan at the moment, and you guys have this magic together that really draws in the crowd.
Was there a question attached to that?
No.
Okay. Well, yeah, wow. I mean, when you take it back, you talk about the greatest of all time, you talk about the GOAT, me and the bros. That's something that goes back a long time, way before being involved in the wrestling business. The four of us grew up together from very young and bonded at a young age, both from having similar experiences in life, experiences at home and through family, but also our shared love of the business that we've been talking about. And, when you're a wrestling fan growing up, you tend to be drawn, or when you're a fan of anything growing up, tend to be drawn and you tend to spend a lot of time with those who share your interests. And nobody shared my interests as strongly as the three of them did. Shout out to my brother Jamal Jackson, who also shared that interest. Uh, but I don't know if it was something that we necessarily decided as at a young age that we were going to do together or that we wanted to do this thing called the GOAT together or anything. It was one of those things that you hear about a lot that was the most organic kind of development just because we were as inseparable as possible as friends. But when we got into the business, we all knew that it was our dream and we went to wrestling school together and we just kind of continued what had already existed. We kind of made a bond and a pact with each other that we would watch each other's back and we would be there for each other no matter what. And, when you go into a business like we talked about earlier, that you get, you learn that people are not always as genuine as they may appear. You tend to cling on to those that you trust the most and the ones that you love the most and the ones that always got your back. And Ray's Murder, Whiplash especially, has always, been there to my left and right without me even having to call or ask or try. And that has never changed. Like family, like true brothers, we annoy each other, we get at each other's throats sometimes. We argue and we fight. And that's not to leave out the two GOAT sisters, Ivy Roman, JL Cotto, who joined the crew later on. That bond was just as strong with them. Even more surprising that it came almost out of nowhere and it was just as strong without having shared the same 20-year history. But it was one of those things that it started out as something that was for us to have fun together and very quickly evolved into something that we knew we didn't want to be apart from. Even now, we've been over 20 years together as friends and, the GOAT, is an ongoing thing. When you're the GOAT for life. You know what I'm saying? And we still support each other very much. Like you mentioned, me and Whiplash, focusing on the Zoltan, really focusing on building ourselves as a tag team. But the GOAT is always looming in the shadows, and people should always know to fear the GOAT because you never know when they might be assembled again. And that goes for any version or combination of the GOAT.
All right, we got something to look forward to. You never know. I'm gonna play some of these messages.
Yes, tweenies.
All I'm gonna say is if y'all haven't seen Cage in a live fight, you can't say shit.
If you haven't seen Cage live, then you haven't seen shit.
I appreciate the love. I appreciate the support. But I will have to agree with you 100%. If you have not seen Kris Kage live, you are missing out. So get your tickets. It's coming. 2021, the Zoltan, the absolute Kris Kage. Big things popping off. I got a lot of trash to talk, and it hasn't even begun yet.
Guys, when I do upload this to YouTube by tomorrow, all his information will be there so you guys can keep up with his schedule.
No, the worst, as in whack promo, whack wrestling, whack everything. Bad, bad heel.
All right, so you want to go with bad, like as in not good.
You said
All right. Well, you know what? That's a question that is a little tough to answer because you might have to categorize it a little bit. When I watch today, again, I'm a fan of everything and I'm a fan of wrestling across the board. But at the same time, I am an old school fan, so I do look for a certain thing when I watch my wrestling. And certain factors to be brought to the table by the performers. That being the case, I do think that there are certain people that do things better than others, and people that need to step their game up when it comes to man, bringing that fire to the table. But if we're talking about worst heel, uh, damn, that's really a tough one for me to. I think the easier way to answer that would be who impresses me more, which is a very very short list. Uh, I'm gonna like for example, I'm gonna have to say, uh, I'm gonna give you an example. The new world's champion. We were just talking about him a little while ago. Now, while many, Mr. Kenny Omega, now while many may argue, uh, the pound for pound best wrestler in the world, subjective, depending on who you are. One thing I can say, and that I kind of feel personally, is that, and this is just my opinion, that when it comes to his promo presentation, when it comes to his feeling natural on the mic and on camera, and feeling like what he's saying is actually what he believes in his heart, it's a little challenging for me. He doesn't always get me. He doesn't always grab me. In the ring, that's another thing. But on the mic, he can leave a little something to be desired. Which again, not knocking it, because you see we got a new manager in the mix. That could, like we mentioned, Bobby the Brain a little earlier, could add to the presentation and could be just the right amount of salt and pepper that we need to get this thing rolling in a little bit of a better way. Uh, Other than that, you want to talk about worst heel? I don't know, Goddess. Do you have any contributions to that question at all? Any opinions?
I agree with you when you said the shorter list is who impresses me. I'm not impressed by much these days. Uh, that's a tough question. I'm gonna go on to the next message.
You know what? Before you kick it off to the next message, being that I want to give a little bit of more thorough answer, I'm gonna say, like I said, to Miss Thorne out there. I know you're asking who I think is the worst heel, but now that you're actually making me think about it, I can't name too many people that impress me too much. So that's a real wide answer. But I will say that people like, of course, the over mentioned, possibly MJF, guy that hasn't even scratched the tip of how great he's going to be in terms of his presentation on the mic, in the ring, and the heel, babyface, whatever role he chooses to play, what he's going to bring to the table. Big things popping off for that kid in the years to come. Promise that. Uh, I gotta give you also. I gotta put over my man, my namesake, Absolute Ricky Starks. You know what I'm saying? Guy knows how to present himself. He knows how to look. He knows how to talk. He knows how to work in the ring. And another guy that has almost a total package. Not that appealing in the facial region, but in terms of everything else, the man really knows how to put it together. So I got to give it to him too. Uh, on the others, I'm a big fan of guys like, even a guy like Pat McAfee. People have been talking a lot about him lately. The guy is someone who does not hail from our profession, but has taken to our profession like a fish out of water, and has impressed people both in his in-ring performances as well as his overshadowing performances on the mic, to which may be better than anybody in the business that actually does this for a living. Uh, and I could probably name a couple other heels that I really like, but off the top of the head, those are three that I really enjoy. Uh, there's guys in the NWA that I enjoy, and guys, I gotta be honest, I've been a little lost on my Impact Wrestling. But there are guys that are part of Impact Wrestling that I'm very big fans of as well. So to answer your question, Miss Thorne, I think the entire business needs to step their game up, because you ask who the worst heel is, you got a business to which half of them won't even claim to want to be a heel. So they need to decide.
With all that being said, I remember the heel that I feel is worse is Seth Rollins, and the reason I say this is because he takes his personal feelings onto social media a little too much, and I don't even support the whole social media ever losing your gimmick or acting any type of way on those platforms other than your gimmick. But yeah, I'm gonna play the next
Yeah, but
message.
wait a minute, because even though you may say that Seth Rollins, is the worst heel because of that, uh I think that's exactly because of the reason that you said. The guy's kind of a heel in real life. The guy is he takes issue with a lot of things that are said on social media, and he likes to defend his position. And when you start slipping down that rabbit hole, you could get real caught up because there's a lot of people that got a lot of negative things to say about everything. And if you spend your time going back and forth with the fans on Twitter or any type of social media, it's not going to do anything to help your business, no matter what role you're playing. And it is going to lose you a lot of support from the people that do support you, because social media, at the end of the day, that's kind of what it's there for. People are going to make their critiques and their judgments, and they're going to have their opinions. And it's kind of the job of the performer to let them have those opinions and present what they're presenting, whether you like it or you don't like it. And when it comes to, like you mentioned before, the presentation of people's social media and just kind of how they show us behind the curtain, I don't think that helps people's bottom line. I don't think it helps them make money. I don't think it helps wrestling make money. And I do think it has helped to diminish the popularity, especially in the mainstream of pro wrestling, because, you know, like I mentioned before, we know the deal, but I sometimes feel that there are too many out there that go out of their way to show you how not authentic certain things are. And it really hurts. And I agree with the notion that guys should, and that goes for the girls too, the guys and the girls. If you are an active performer on a regular basis, you shouldn't give us too much of the personal life at home. Yes. Because the people that are paying to watch you perform are not paying to watch the person that hangs out with their dog at home, or the person in your Thanksgiving pictures, or the person that went to the theme park and is showing you smooching with your significant other, or anything that you want to that present that makes you feel like I'm going to appeal to the next person because they see that I'm a fun-loving guy or gal. You need to pipe that shit down and give me a little more presentation of what you do in front of that camera, because at the end of the day, that's what we're paying to watch.
Clap it up for that, guys, because he's absolutely correct. And that's just like when people, just too much. Need to do a little less. I mean, that's the way I see it. That's the way we see it. I'm gonna play some of these messages.
And trust me, I have my aunt is her teammate. What's up and get with it. Get down or lay down.
Thank you, Antonio. When you send your message, if you could just a little bit louder. But yeah, because I didn't hear it all through. But it was another compliment.
I appreciate the compliments coming from Tony over there. He's just sounding a little faded in the background. That's all I'm saying.
I don't believe wrestling is fake. It depends on what it is. So I don't know why she keeps saying whack, 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 whack. I'm sorry. I had to say something because that pissed me off right there, because they don't realize part of wrestling is real, because they go on their shows and show that they be really kicking some butt and hurting themselves.
And that is the case. These days, guys, like I said before, first of all, I've been doing this for a long time and I wake up with that pain every day. So there's nothing fake about what we do in that ring physically. At the end of the day, though, there is a very different mentality when it comes to how to present that realism. And I promise you, Lori, I think it was that when you're sitting in that backstage, when you're sitting in that locker room and you're listening to these guys talk about what they're going to present to the audience, I promise you, they ain't worrying about making it look real to you. And that's what I'm talking about these days. And that's what we're alluding to these days, is that back in the day, it was tough to notice, especially depending on what you were watching, what was actually predetermined or quote unquote the F word. Nowadays, you kind of see that joint all day, every day. Wrestling has kind of become Cirque du Soleil on fucking ice, and it's more of a circus and a trapeze act than it is people simulating fight combat.
I agree. Um, Before I answer the next question, I'm gonna ask another question. So, Chris, you've started the Absolware line this year. Can you explain what drove you to start designing and what's your ultimate vision or goal?
The Absolute thing really was born from a very selfish and self-serving uh, origin, if you will. It really just started when I was 15 years old. You know, like most guys being in the wrestling, you run around with your friends and you beat each other up in the street or in the playground or in your backyard. And it was around those teenage years that the persona of Kris Kage developed, the name and everything. And I've always been somebody, as you know, that likes to stand out from other people. And one of the ways I figured to do that when I was young was to have a look that nobody else had, especially in my very small community. And, and that's when I started designing shirts with Sharpie markers and cans of spray paint, and just really to kind of flash myself up and make myself look a little more appealing and a little more custom made, if you will. And then that morphed into, once we got into the business, and every wrestler needs some good merch. And being that, you know, the art was something that I always did, and sketching and logos and something was something that I always just did for fun. I just applied that to making our t-shirts. And, you know, little by little, we noticed that the t-shirts happened to gain a little popularity and gaining some requests. And that's kind of when the clothing line idea or the t-shirt line idea started brewing in my head. I will admit that right now I'm nowhere near where I want to be, because the sky's the limit, and I could only hope to make Absolware or something, something that people actually like repping and walking down that street rocking. But right now it's just a little humble side hustle, trying to get that merch out there, trying to spread the gospel, trying to get people to know the name of Kris Kage, Absolute, and the Zoltan, and the GOAT. And I'm going to keep on pushing because it's only going to get bigger. We started with the t-shirts. You got those on prowrestlingtees.com/Absolware, cheap plug. And soon we'll be on more platforms than that, and we'll be providing a lot more products than just t-shirts. So keep your eye out for that one.
All right, I respect that. And you guys listening, Chris he's awesome. He's amazing. If you need any video work or logo work or consultations, hit him up he's open for business.
I am a fan of Santino Morella. Do you think comedy helps the business or hinders it?
So, like with anything, like with a good comedy movie, if the comedy's done right, it could work magically. Comedy has always been a part of wrestling. There's always been a place for it in every era and every territory, but it had its place. And there was a time that the comedy wasn't so overt as it may be in the current day. It was done in a subtle way and played in a very straight-faced way, just creating situations that them within themselves were funny, or what happened in a certain segment or a certain interview or whatever that would bring the comedy. For example, we mentioned Bobby the Brain Heenan earlier. One of the things that I remember as a kid was Bobby the Brain having matches in which if his client would lose, he would have to put on the infamous weasel suit. And when it would eventually happen, as it usually did, his guy would usually lose, and he would have to put on that suit, and he would, run around like a jackass wearing the weasel suit. It was more the situation of you knew that the bad guy, in which you did not like, was being put in a situation that he did not like. And watching him be uncomfortable and get angry and get emotional is what supplied the comedy. And you had a million different, both, I guess you want to say spontaneous moments and moments that were set up that were comedy gold. This is your life, and many other segments like that. But the hinder or help question, I think, when it comes to 2020 is a little sketchy because, in my opinion, wrestling is a little too comedic these days. And in my opinion, uh, I think everyone's trying to be funny. Everyone's trying to be funny 24/7. It's almost like you can't watch a wrestling show without watching some comedy. And while comedy does have a place in wrestling, uh, I do not agree that every single wrestling show I watch should have a comedy segment or a comedy match or a comedy character or uh, or just stop trying to make me laugh. The situations should make me laugh. You shouldn't go out of your way to try and make people laugh because at the end of the day, as we mentioned earlier, this is supposed to be simulated drama, conflict, and fighting. And it's kind of hard to get caught up in that when you're watching something and you're going, this can't be serious. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And unfortunately, a lot of the time I watch wrestling nowadays and that is my reaction. And they'll present it with a very straight face and serious, like this is the greatest thing we're watching. And I can't believe what I'm seeing.
We have a lot of the same views, so I completely agree. Um, Before I answer this message, I'm gonna ask Chris. This question is one I'm sure many others would love to know. You're known to be top tier on the mic and promo wise. What I mean by that is you're pretty godlike. What advice can you give related to that skill?
Practice it. You want to talk about things that hurt the business today? You talk about people that can't get in front of the mic and talk for more than 10 seconds without pissing on themselves. And you got a lot of guys that I don't want to blame the guys necessarily because I blame a lot of the people that have been teaching the past 2, 3 generations. In my opinion, you got about 3 generations of people training people that have no right training people. And one of the things that have been lost, one of the arts that have been lost along the way is the art of the promo. And that is because guys that are coming up today are not taught that the promo is important to their presentation. You got guys that spend 24/7 in the gym. You got guys that spend 24/7 trying to get their body the way they want it to look. You got guys that spend their entire career trying to have that perfect 5-star match that doesn't actually exist. And you got all of those people paying zero attention to the fact that they got to get their mic skills up. Because at the end of the day, if I'm not interested in you as a person, let alone a personality, I'm not going to be interested in any fight that you have to quote unquote perform in front of me.
I agree.
And the bottom line is, uh, guys ask me, that is probably the most asked question I get is how can I improve my promos? And the answer to that question is practice and do promos. The only way to get better at promos is to stand in front of that camera and suck at it for a little while. And eventually you might get something along the way because you might find your voice, you might find your personality, you might actually find your attitude and go, you know what? This is it. And if that don't work, do like I did. Most people were singing in the shower and singing in front of their mirror growing up when they were kids. I grew up as a teenager cutting promos in the shower, standing in front of my mirror for hours on end, trying to emulate what I saw on TV, the energy, the passion, the look in their eyes. And that is what is missing in today's climate. Miss Sophia Thorne and anybody else that might be listening, you want to know the thing that is missing the most in the wrestling business today? It's the look in their eyes.
He just gave me chills. And I just speak, from a fan standpoint. So having someone who understands the same thing that I feel when I'm watching wrestling, I'm sure I'm not the only one. I'm gonna play this message.
Wait a minute, wait a minute. Eddie Guerrero was really funny, so I don't know. I think it helps it.
I would not disagree with Eddie Guerrero being funny, but that Eddie Guerrero, the singular person that you just named, being funny and hilarious, has nothing to do with comedy in the wrestling business as a whole. So if you want to, if you're trying to make the argument to me, Miss Thorne, that Eddie Guerrero's comedy somehow in some way elevated the wrestling business, I would beg to differ on that one. What you did was you mentioned somebody who was great at what they did and someone who could never be duplicated and someone who you will never see performed to that type of level. So there was only one Eddie Guerrero. There was ever only one. There will ever only be one. And I'm almost positive that only Eddie Guerrero could have made what you think was so great even work.
Yeah, good stuff. Um, let's see. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Appreciate your participation. I hope you're enjoying the sit down. All right. So that brings me to my next question. Chris, what is a goal you'd like to reach before you do plan on retiring from wrestling?
Uh, I kind of accomplished my goal already when it comes to that.
Chris, what is a goal you'd like to reach before you do plan on retiring from wrestling?
Uh, I kind of accomplished my goal already when it comes to that. You know, a lot of people grow up and they have very, very big dreams. And, you got a lot of guys that'll give you the cliche, I dreamt about being the world champion when I was a kid, or headlining a certain show, or whatever that may be. But I came from very, you know, the humblest of beginnings. And I grew up in the projects, I grew up in the hood, and I grew up in an environment where making it in any type of entertainment or achieving any type of fantasy based dream was not as realistic as you may have hoped. So my goal was simple. My goal was to be a pro wrestler. When I was young, I just wanted to be a pro wrestler. When I made that decision as a young man, the decision was, I'm going to do this one day. And I didn't really, I guess because I'm pretty realistic and I don't set my expectations too high when it comes to anything. Uh, that was kind of the checklist. That was what I needed to do, and I knew that if I accomplished that goal and got to perform in a legitimate setting and actually being promoted by people that I look up to and respect, and being able to perform in front of live people that paid a ticket price to see someone perform, that was the goal. And to be able to know just to myself that I had enough of whatever it is that you need to do this, uh, it would be satisfactory for me, and I would be able to say that I accomplished my dream. And I could tell you with everything in my heart that I accomplished my dream. I'm living the dream now, and I'm enjoying the ride still because I still got some juice left. And me and my partner and uh, my family, we're still very much enjoying it. So there's not necessarily no timetable. I'm not one of these guys that says if I don't make it to a certain place at a certain point, I'm gonna hang it up because what the fuck. I'm not one of those guys. It's just it's just I'm gonna ride it until the wheels fall off, until the body says no more. That's the first thing, of course. And until this stops being fun. I mean, the day it stops being fun is the day that it's over. Because at the end of the day, we do this, and anybody that does this because it's a passion, especially when you're trying to come up. It ain't glamorous, it ain't high paying, and you do it because you love it. So the day that ends, uh, will be the day that my boots go up in the shelf for good. But I don't plan on leaving the wrestling business for a very long time, whether that be in a manager position and a commentating position. There are so many things to do in the wrestling business that I plan to be here for a very, very long time.
All right. Thank you for that. How could you not admire or respect this guy? Anybody got anything else to say or comments or questions? We're gonna bring this to a close shortly. But thank you for listening and participating. Okay. I just wanna I have one last question for myself. Kris, can you name both a tag team and a solo match that you haven't had and would like to have, indie or mainstream?
Uh, well, I guess from a tag team perspective and from a fan's perspective, I grew up a big fan of the Rock and Roll Express and the Midnight Express, the two greatest tag teams of all time. And from a selfish fan point of view, would have loved to have the opportunity to step into the ring with either of those teams, the Rock and Roll Express. Rock and Roll Express is still going today in their 60s, so who the heck knows? The dream is still out there. And a little bit from a selfish perspective as well, the great Santana and Ortiz of the current Inner Circle. As you know, myself, my partner, and them two go way, way back. And before they hit it to the big time, we have a long history inside that ring, and it would be absolutely magical to be able to translate that onto the mainstream and onto a major stage. So if I had to just narrow two tag teams down at the moment off the top, it would be them, and I would also have to add, in my opinion, the greatest tag team in the world, FTR, right now, just because someone who a tag team who I know appreciate the type and form of wrestling that I appreciate. So that would be pretty much an honor to do that. In terms of singles, I can't say that there's anybody when it comes to singles that I really have my eye on, just because my personal focus is not necessarily on that right now.
What about
Uh,
a dream?
but a dream match, hey, if I could have stepped into the ring with the Idol Shawn Michaels or an AJ Styles or even the great Rey Mysterio, or even shout out to Sophia Thorne, the greatest of all time, Eddie Guerrero, you got the list of dream matches could literally go on forever. Uh, when it comes to guys today, it's tough because I'm a fan of a lot of guys today. But some of the guys that I mentioned before, guys like MJF, guys like Adam Cole, one of the best there is going today. You know, I could go on forever because it would all be magic, and it would be an absolute honor and pleasure. But the tag teams is where. And before we get out of here, I just want to say thank you to the Goddess for having me on the show. And for everybody out there, hit up Goddess Made Treasures on all your social media websites. She's the one-stop shop for all your gifts when it comes to custom jobs, sneakers, shoes, hats, T-shirts. She does it all. And she does your custom-made, homemade little knickknacks, patty wax, and all your gifts for Christmas and beyond. And when you're looking for me on the social medias, look for Absolute Kage. Twitter, Instagram, Kris Kage on Facebook, Left Hand on Top Productions on YouTube. Hit us up, support the cause, like, share, and once again to the Goddess, thank you so much for having me on the show. It was an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much, Kris Kage, and I am humbled and honored by that. I want to thank you all again for listening. I will be posting this to YouTube by tomorrow so you guys can share. Have a good night. Peace out.